Maybe you've seen this verse on a coffee mug, or even hanging on the wall at church. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. It sounds so encouraging. But what if I told you that's not really what the Bible means? And it's not the only verse people often get wrong. Today, we'll uncover why these verses are misunderstood and what God was truly saying. But first, let me ask, can Bible verses about strength really help us overcome every difficulty? Comment below. So let's start with the first verse and see what it really says. Let's start with one of the most common misunderstandings. You've probably seen Philippians 4:13 written somewhere. On a wall at church, in a graduation card, even on a coffee mug. It says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. People use it as a kind of motivational slogan. Athletes repeat it before competitions. Business owners claim it when chasing success. Students write it down before a big exam. It sounds like the Bible is giving us a guarantee of achievement. Then there's Psalm 37 verse 4. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Many people take this to mean, if you just love God enough, He'll give you whatever you want, like a divine ATM machine. No wonder prosperity preachers love this verse so much. Next up is the famous saying, money is the root of all evil. You hear it all the time when people criticize wealth. It makes it sound like the Bible is against success, or that having money automatically makes you sinful. And finally, one of the most quoted of all, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you. This one is everywhere. On coffee mugs, wall decorations, graduation speeches. It's often used to promise a personal life of comfort and prosperity. 4 verses, quoted by millions of people, often with good intentions. But here's the problem that changes everything. That's not what any of these verses actually say. And when you see what they really mean, your understanding of God, of faith, and of life itself changes completely. So let's dig deeper and see what's really going on, and see. Let's start with one of the most quoted verses, Philippians 4:13. Paul wrote, I can do all this through Him who gives me strength. Notice the phrase, all this. It doesn't mean anything you can imagine. It points back to the struggles Paul just listed. Times of hunger, times of need, and times of plenty. Listen to his words. I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content, whether well-fed or hungry, living in plenty or in want. Paul wasn't writing from a success seminar. He was chained to a Roman guard, facing execution. He had endured shipwrecks, beatings, and years in prison. So, when he said, I can do all this, he meant, I can endure all these hardships because Christ gives me strength. Not, I can achieve every dream I have. Roman prisoners lived in brutal conditions, chained day and night, often underfed, never sure if death was coming. Paul's words were not about supernatural success, but about supernatural endurance in suffering. Now let's look at Psalm 37, verse 4. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Many take this to mean, if you love God enough, He'll give you whatever you want. But in Hebrew, delight means to find your deepest joy in God. And when you truly delight in Him, your desires change. You stop craving things that pull you away and start longing for what draws you closer. The promise isn't that God gives you every wish, but that He reshapes your heart to want what is truly good. Next is the saying, money is the root of all evil. That's not what Paul wrote. He said, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Notice the difference. It's love of money, not money itself. It's all kinds of evil, not every evil. And it's a root. not the only root. Money is neutral. Some of the most generous believers are wealthy. Others with very little can still destroy relationships over money. The issue is not the amount, it's the attitude of the heart. Finally, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. This verse wasn't written to modern individuals chasing success. It was a letter to the Jewish exiles in Babylon. They had lost their homes, their freedom, and wondered if God had abandoned them. Through Jeremiah, God promised, after 70 years, he would bring them back home. The word prosper here is shalom, meaning peace, wholeness, well-being. It's not about money. It's about survival, restoration, and God's faithfulness to his people. That promise was fulfilled when Cyrus allowed the Jews to return in 538 BC. And while that specific promise was for them, the principle still stands for us today. God is faithful, and his plans are always for our ultimate good. When we understand these verses in context, the truth is far richer, more powerful, and more life-changing than the slogans we often hear. Here's what these verses actually teach, and why the truth is better than the distortions. Philippians 4:13 isn't about achieving anything you want. It's about finding strength for anything life brings. Paul discovered that Christ's power is most evident, not in success, but in endurance. Whether facing poverty or plenty, persecution or praise, he had supernatural strength to maintain faith and joy. This is more valuable than a success guarantee. Success comes and goes, but the strength to face any circumstance with grace? That's a promise you can count on forever. Psalm 37 verse 4 isn't about God giving whatever you want. It's about God changing what you want. As you grow closer to him, desires align with his heart. You stop craving things that harm you and start longing for things that fulfill his purposes. This is better than getting your current desires fulfilled, because your current desires might be limited, selfish, destructive. God promises to give you desires worthy of his kingdom. The money verse isn't condemning wealth. It's warning about obsession. Money itself is morally neutral. It's a tool for incredible good or terrible evil, depending on our relationship with it. Some of the most generous people are wealthy. Some of the greediest people are poor. The issue isn't your bank account. It's your heart's attachment to money. And Jeremiah 29:11, instead of promising personal prosperity, it shows something deeper. God works through communities and generations. His plans often span decades and entire peoples, not just individuals. I think about Maria, a woman in our church. She claimed Jeremiah 29:11 during her battle with cancer. She expected healing and prosperity. When she didn't get better, she felt abandoned by God. But when she understood the verse in context, everything changed. She realized God's plans weren't about her personal health. They were about how her faith in suffering would impact her family and her community for generations. She died with incredible peace. Her testimony has strengthened hundreds of believers facing trials. Here's the profound truth. When we misquote Scripture, we don't just get words wrong. We get God wrong. The real Bible is deeper, more complex, more satisfying than the simplified slogans. So if these popular quotes are wrong, what should we actually believe about God's promises? These misquotes reveal something troubling about how we approach Scripture. We tend to grab verses that support what we already want, instead of letting the Bible challenge us and change us. The misquoted Philippians 4:13 feeds our success obsession. The distorted Psalm 37:4 supports our materialism. The twisted Jeremiah 29:11 reinforces our individualism. We're not reading the Bible. We're using it to justify our desires. Throughout history, people misuse Scripture to justify slavery, oppression, violence. Today's misquotes might seem harmless, but they reveal the same dangerous pattern, making the Bible say what we want instead of hearing truth. So how do we avoid these mistakes? 3 simple principles. First, always read the whole chapter. Verses only make sense in their context. Philippians 4:13 makes sense with Paul's words on contentment. Jeremiah 29:11 makes sense only in the exile situation. Second, compare different translations. If your verse sounds very different in others, dig deeper. The ESV, NIV, NASB, and NRSV reveal important nuances. Third, learn about the original audience. Ask, who was this written to? What situation were they facing? What would it have meant to them? Ancient Near Eastern culture thought very differently than ours. When people start reading scripture this way, everything changes. Instead of using God to bless their agenda, they discover God's agenda is bigger and more beautiful. Don't do this alone. Join a Bible study, read with others. Discuss interpretations together. Iron sharpens iron, and community helps us avoid blindness. Use tools like Bible Gateway, Bible Hub, or Logos. These show original languages, commentaries, and cross-references. You don't need seminary training to study responsibly. The question isn't whether you'll face more misconceptions. You will. The question is whether you'll have wisdom to recognize them and find the deeper truth underneath. All right, I'd love to hear your honest thoughts. Do you think these common misquotes are just harmless? Or do they actually change how people see God and faith? I'm really curious about your perspective. Maybe you've believed one of these verses the wrong way. There's no shame in that. Most of us have at some point. Or maybe you've heard them used in church, on social media, or even in family conversations. Share your experience in the comments. I'd love to learn from you. And tell me, which of these 4 surprised you the most? If this video helped clear things up, tap like. It shows YouTube that people still care about biblical truth, not just catchy slogans. And please, share this with your church group, or with a friend or family member. You never know. It might be the encouragement they need today. I truly value your insights. Some of the best conversations happen right here in the comments, and I do my best to read and respond. And don't miss what's coming next week. We'll look at another huge misconception. God helps those who help themselves. Spoiler, that's not in the Bible. And the real truth about God's help is far more encouraging. So make sure you're subscribed and check out the playlist Debunking Bible Misconceptions, where we tackle the most common misunderstandings together. Remember this, it's always better to wrestle with the real Bible than to be comfortable with a fake one. The truth may be more challenging, but it's also deeper, more beautiful, and truly life-changing. Keep studying, keep asking questions, keep seeking the truth. That's how we grow, from simply knowing Scripture to truly living in God's wisdom.